Hello everyone, thank you for joining me again. Today I've got an experience from someone who is pretty, well known, renowned in the near-death experience circles. It's actually one of the first people I came across when I started getting into this topic. I was actually talking about this the other day, how I actually came across near-death experiences, and I honestly can't remember. I remember the first podcast about it that I listened to, and it was an instant passion for me. But how I actually stumbled across that podcast, I do not remember. But anyway, this is one of the first experiences that I actually listened to, and it deeply resonated with me. Probably because the lady who has it was an atheist, was a scientist, believed this physical reality is all there is to this experience we have, and you die and that's it. And then she had a near-death experience and totally changed her perspective on life. So if you want to find out more about this lady, there's lots of interviews and YouTube videos with her in it, but today I'm just going to read a handwritten version of her story. But if you want to hear it from the lady herself, just Google Nancy R NDE, and there'll be plenty of material there for you. So yeah, this is Nancy R NDE's experience on the endearth.org website. In January of 2014, I experienced some things that promised to change my life forever. These experiences went from horribly terrifying and painful to profoundly beautiful and soul-stirring, all within the space of a few days. On the morning of January the 3rd, 2014, while riding my bicycle, I was struck broadside by a truck. My injuries were so severe that I am still in recovery from some of them. By all accounts of the doctors who treated me, I shouldn't have lived. Most people die from these injuries, my surgeon and doctor insist. They were right. I shouldn't have lived. In fact, I came very close to death twice during those first few days. During those brushes with death, I had two near-death experiences that promised to change the way I look at life, the way I experience life, and the way I feel about the concepts of God and spirit. Before we go any further, let me say that I've debated about putting this out there, but I realize that it has to be right now. I feel in my heart that it's not good to hold on to this experience. At least one of my friends is soon facing the final transition, and I would hope that this post, in some small way, helps her make peace with moving on to the afterlife. I also hope that it helps others facing a similar situation. My first near-death experience happened when the truck initially struck me. In human time, this near-death experience lasted just a few minutes. As I was struck, I realized that my consciousness was in two places simultaneously. One part, very scared and animal-like, was firmly inside of my broken body that was stuck on the vehicle's axle and being dragged under the truck. The other part was very calm, dispassionate observer, hovering out in front of the truck and off to the south, watching the whole scene unfold from a distance. This dual consciousness seemed quite normal to the observer part of me. The observer was calm about the whole thing, and I remembered the feeling that this was all happening for a reason, that there was nothing to fear. The observer, me, watched as witnesses stopped and called for help as the paramedics arrived. When the paramedics started working on me, the two selves came back together. Once I was stabilized enough to move, they transported me to the nearest trauma hospital. It turned out that my head and spinal injuries were so severe that I needed surgery. My lower spine would need reconstruction, but only after the bleeding in my brain stabilized. In the meantime, the trauma team admitted me to the intensive care unit. I pondered that initial split consciousness experience for a few days in ICU while I awaited surgery. I had no explanation for being in two places at the same time, or for experiencing the accident from two different vantage points at once. In my scientific mind, I didn't know how consciousness could split apart, with one part of me traveling outside of the body. Finally, I dismissed it as just an oddity of the crash and almost dying. It wasn't important, and it most certainly wasn't real. Or so I thought. Perhaps because the first experience wasn't enough to get me thinking about spiritual matters. 3 days after surgery, 3 days later, during surgery, I was pulled right back into the thick of things. I had another NDE, but this one was different. Instead of simply experiencing events unfold from outside of my body, my consciousness was ultimately brought to a place unlike anything I have ever experienced. The beauty and utter peace of the place defies human words. It felt totally calm. I felt totally calm, loved, and whole. I also felt a deep, profound sense of love permeating everything there. It was big love, as if the structure of this place was somehow made of love. Love was everywhere because there was nowhere that wasn't love. I can't explain it any further than that. I already never wanted to leave this place. One woman greeted me, although she said it was a form that she took at the time to make it easy for me to relate to her. She was a stranger to me, although I was somehow not a stranger to her. She moved with me throughout the landscape, telling me things that I and the rest of the world needed to remember. Things we'd forgotten or perhaps never learnt. These things were reminders that would help us to live a beautiful life on earth. She said she was a spokesperson for everyone in heaven. Somehow she was a conduit for the information I was being given, because if I met and communicated with everyone who wanted to speak with me, I would be overwhelmed. It felt as though we were together for days, even weeks. The amount of information she passed on to me was staggering. I am still processing it. But eventually she insisted it was time for me to go back to my life. The thought of that made me weep like a child. I didn't want to go back. Not now, not ever. This place was too beautiful and loving for me to want to leave. But she insisted that I had a life to live. It wasn't time for me to be here for good. I argued up and down and even yelled at her a few times. Can you imagine arguing with a being such as this? But I did. I argued and cried. I insisted I didn't want to go back to a broken body and all of the repercussions from this experience that awaited me. She watched me with what felt like sadness, but she insisted that it was time for me to go back. As I opened my mouth to argue again, I was back in the surgical recovery room. I was confused, weeping, and already missing that place and the being who I'd met there. No, I am no longer an atheist or agnostic, although at this point I don't want to put a label on what I am. I did have the good fortune of being shown spirit in a way that made me realize that I can no longer deny it for myself. These experiences have opened my heart to all peoples, all faiths, and all beliefs in a way that I would not have thought possible. I will share a small bit of the first thing she taught me. We are primarily here to love, to practice love, to show love, to experience love. Hate is not the language of spirit, nor is fear. Love is. It is a love that has no conditions or strings attached. It is simply love in all of its forms. I was asked to share this with as many people as possible, so that is what I intend to do. That's what I promised after all. I'm not sure yet how I will get out this information. I think telling on a blog is a good start, but I expect that some larger form of publication will be in the works too. Yes, this is all real. No, I didn't make up or embellish any of it. I understand that some of you will think I'm crazy or hallucinating. Some of you may find any explanation to deny my experiences because they feel uncomfortable to you. Some people I've known for years may choose to distance themselves from me. This could cost me a lot. I was an agnostic scientist until just a couple of months ago, after all. But this is me and my life now. I trust that telling my story and all that follows will help more than it hurts. It will give people hope and it brings people together. It may be that telling the story brings new people or opportunities into my life as well. All as it should be. While my time on the other side, otherwise known as heaven, was brief in human terms, when I was there it felt as if it were weeks or months had passed. I observed an amazing amount in at most a couple of human hours. The first wonderful thing that I experienced was the beauty of heaven, both visually and in a feeling sense. When I was there, a landscape of gentle rolling hills surrounded me. Flower-filled grassy meadows spread out on the hills around me. There were huge deciduous trees in full leaf. The trees were larger and grander than here on earth and surrounded the meadows. There was the barest sense of a light mist, as if it were a humid summer morning clung to the top of the trees. The sky showed a very light blue, similar to what you might see at the ocean's shore, with wispy clouds and a very bright but somewhat diffuse golden light. That was the visual, but there was more to heaven than what we can see with our eyes. Below the surface visuals was a well of feeling, fueled by love, peace, and abiding presence that I will call Spirit or God. Through the landscape around me, I sensed a profound feeling of peace, brightness, goodness, and love. The beauty I felt really does deserve a capital B, but it wasn't just pleasing to the eye, there was something deeper to it. more harmonious, more blessed, and more powerful. Everything tied together by love and peace, and the beauty of the scenes around me was the product of this unconditional love. While the beauty of heaven took my breath away, the sense of love completely ensnared me and made me want to stay there forever. I felt a deep sense of that love flowing through all things around me: the air, the ground below my feet, the trees, the clouds, and me. I felt the love flowing around me, flowing through me, and eventually capturing me by the heart. I felt supported by a loving presence so powerful, yet so gentle that I cried again. I had never experienced such unconditional love and acceptance in all of my years on the planet. It felt as though this place were built from love and peace on a very grand cosmic scale. What I realized and was later told by my guide was that the love formed the structure or underpinnings of heaven. Each soul might see the landscape differently, but all sensed and saw the love that formed the basis for everything in the same way. The love and peace seemed to shimmer as glimmers of lights beneath the surface, winking in and out of visual sight. It had the colours and sparkle and texture. It seemed to take the form of what I saw, like trees, a meadow, but at the same time, it was also separate from the forms themselves. The closest I can come to explaining what heaven, in inverted commas, looked like to my feeling senses is to point you to the work of artist Ken Elliott. His paintings come closest to capturing what I felt underlying the landscapes over there. I'll share two pieces here with you with his permission, but please check out his website for more examples: www.kenelliott.com. His pictures' soft blue progression come closest to showing you what the visuals look like for me as well. Another one is Yellow Wall. It gives you a sense of the energy or vibration of love and peace that build everything there. And that's the end of Nancy's experience. It's interesting to me reading that experience because it appears to be her first segue into putting her experience out there. Looks like she wrote into this website to describe what had happened, and you can kind of see in parts of that experience where she seems a little bit scared or reluctant to want to share her story because of the fear that putting yourself out there and potentially being called crazy or hallucinating, I think she puts, uh, and she's a respected scientist when all this is has happened, when she has this accident. So to put yourself out there and be subject to ridicule and lose your career or totally change the direction of your life is a scary thing. But yeah, this is what she did. She decided to go all in, and she wrote a book, and now I'm just done a Google on her name. She's got her own website, and it says she's a keynote speaker, she's an author, spiritual teacher, and an artist. And yeah, I'll just so that's what she did. Let's go through this experience again. The, I will also say before we go through it again is that in the interview she goes into a lot more detail as to what actually happened when she crosses over. Here, she just kind of says, "Yeah, I had this guide, stayed there for a few weeks, and that was about it. They taught me that love is kind of underlying everything. I was in this beautiful landscape, but from memory, she does go into a fair bit more detail as to what that experience with this guide was like from the interviews I have heard. It was a long time ago I listened to her talking about it, but I do recall it being a little bit more a little bit higher on the detail scale when I was listening to it. So yeah, I do recommend you check her out on YouTube. It would not be hard to find an interview with her. She would have done lots. Um, yeah, so have a look, see if you can find this Nancy Rhines and listen to her interview because her story was quite game changing for me. I really did like hearing her explain her experience, but also the bit that was profound to me was how she totally changed her life. And people have these experiences, and they're fascinating, they're amazing, they're game changing while they're happening, but not everyone changes their life direction in such a dramatic way like Nancy has. Like she went from this non-God believing scientist who had no concept of spirituality whatsoever into this, what she is today, a spiritual teacher, and all because of this near-death experience. And this is, to me, the proof that these are real, the way people just totally drop everything, so to speak, and totally go down this new path. That is as good evidence I think you're going to get of the reality of these experiences to the individuals having them. But it's not going to convince everyone, so it's just I don't know. And obviously, I come at this from a pretty biased perspective. I choose to believe that what these people talk about is true, and I've had mystical experiences myself that aren't as profound as a near-death experience, but it's kind of, I have little snippets of what these people experience, and for me, it doesn't happen when I've come close to death a few times, but never had a near-death experience, but I have had lots of mystical experiences, and I continue to have them on a daily basis almost. So that's what draws me to these experiences, because I can very much relate to what people are saying when they have them, just not on the scale that they experience them at. So let's have a look at what happened to her again. So it's 2014, so not all that long ago, um, 10 years ago. So she's riding her bike and she's hit broadside by a truck. And the experience she has at first is a little bit different, actually. I haven't heard many people describe this split consciousness type event that happens to her. So she gets run over or hit by this truck, and it sounds like it's a pretty brutal accident. And as this truck hits her, her consciousness splits, she says. So one part sticks to her human, it seems, and she's still experiencing this human that she is. So it's scared. It's worried because it knows where it is. It's under this truck's wheel, and it's been dragged under, and it's very upset at what's happened. And one part of her consciousness is still inside her human body. It seems, and going through all those things that we all would when something terrible happens. You get that stress. But the other part is not in that human form anymore. So most human most near-death experiences they will totally leave the human and won't feel any pain or fear. It's like they're not in that body anymore. But for Nancy, it's different. Part of her is in the human, but the other part is just watching this scene from another point of view. There's no fear or pain. There's no real connection to what's happening to this human body. It's like it's a totally separate event, and she's not concerned about the outcome, and she's actually feeling pretty calm about the whole thing, and there's nothing for her to worry about or to fear. It's this is she thinks from this other perspective. It's meant to happen. It's happening for a reason. So let's get on with it kind of attitude. So it's interesting, and it's hard for us, or for me, to wrap my head around how you can simultaneously be observing the same incident from totally different perspectives, not only physically, like one's inside the body, one's meters away, one's totally panicked by the situation and the other's calm. How that how can that work? Like how can you have two separate polar like experiences going on at the same time? Like what does that feel like? Can you be panicked but calm? And yeah, it's hard, isn't it? Because obviously us in our human bodies, we've only got this one perspective, and that's all we can relate to. But to think that there's something inside of us that can leave this body and watch us from another point of view and be totally detached from the dramas that our human life brings, and can just look at it from a totally new perspective is cool. It's cool. It's hard to believe. It's miraculous, and I yeah, it's just hard to explain as well, like how this can be possible. But this is what happened to Nancy, and I believe Nancy because she's a smart woman, and just the direction her life has taken says to me this was a profound experience that has been retold in a truthful manner. I mean, why make this stuff up? She was comfortable in her scientific job. She was not seeking God. She just like a regular human, and then to go from that path to this path adds validity to me. So this is the first part of her near-death experience. It doesn't say what um, drags her back into her body, but she just repeats, look, this is totally normal for us to have these two different vantage points at once. And a kind of, although this isn't a life review, I guess it's similar in some ways in that you can see multiple perspectives of your human body. You can look at your body from any direction. You can look at your body or your life through someone else's eyes. You can, and I guess it's similar to that, and along those lines that this consciousness we have can be, I don't know, shared, seen, move around. It's timeless, so it can jump forwards and backwards. It can do some pretty incredible things from a normal human perspective. Anyway, it seems almost um, too good to be true or too far fetched. But yeah, I believe these things. I truly do. So, but incredibly, she just, I guess, because of her scientific mind and her background, she just brushes off this first experience and says that can't be real. That's impossible. It must have just been something that happens when the body has a severe crash, and it kind of has its own coping mechanism, and this is what it is. It somehow jumps out of the body and splits. So this is her rationale, and coming from scientific background with no real uh, spirituality in her past, this, I guess, is a logical way to interpret the event that's just happened. So this second part well, the second experience is where it gets a bit more profound, and we get the greater descriptions of love, peace, that sort of thing. So let's go through this again. As per usual, we get that the beauty and utter peace of this place defies the way humans can describe it with words. She feels loved, she feels whole, she feels calm. She feels as though this place is actually made of love, which is hard to understand, isn't it? Because that place that she's in is probably the same, is made of the same stuff that the place we're in now is made of, because everything comes from the one source. So how can that dimension be different from this dimension in terms of its core structure or core, what makes it is the same stuff at the end of the day. So why is a place in another dimension, why is that so obviously radiating with love, whereas the same place we're in now, which is made of, comes from the same source, you don't sense that love? Like, why is that? Is this place designed to be more challenging and to push us in various directions, where this other dimension, this heaven-like place, people want to be there, they want to stay there, they feel at home there, and they don't want to leave. And obviously people do, because we are here right now experiencing a more darker dimension. And it's funny, this place, isn't it? Like we are challenged by it relentlessly, but and hurt by it even, but we kind of still do our best. I'm talking about myself here, to try and prolong the experience. Like I eat well, I exercise, and sometimes I kind of wonder why I'm doing that when I know I'm prolonging my life here, and prolonging the time I'm going to experience the challenges of being a human. And it's kind of, I'm in two minds, because I know that this other dimension that we come from is right there in front of us, and this is the place we get to return to when we're no longer here. But at the same time, I guess I want to do all I can while I'm in this human body, because although it's hard, it's still an amazing experience. And although this place has got a lot of darkness, there's still lots of wow and awe and love and regular occurrences of joy that make it all that worthwhile. It's funny. It's like this. Um, you'll be having a day where um, everything's going well, you're loving life, you want it to go forever, and then something challenging will happen, and you just want out of this experience. And then the next challenging thing will happen, and you're going, oh my God, like this, I just want this to be over. But then, the next moment will be something pleasurable again, and it'll put you back on this trajectory of loving the experience. And it's this balance, isn't it? It's you kind of have one foot in the darkness and one in the light on a regular occurrence on a daily basis. And it's like that, that that good angel on one shoulder, and that devil on the other, that is permanently with most of us, I think, on this path as a human. And well, for me personally, anyway, I guess there's some people who are more in the light and the love and the joy of the experience on a regular basis, and others that are more prone to that darker and seeing the more negative side of this place. But for me, I kind of get a bit of both, and yeah, that's just the way it is. And I wish it was more full of love and light, but I don't know. I don't think this experience is designed for us to be in that state that a lot of people, like Nancy here, describes this heaven-like place where you feel that you're loved, you're surrounded by love. It's this very high vibrational environment that is free from all negativity. And I don't know. I guess there's some people on this planet who have somehow navigated their experience to get to the point where negativity is not doesn't affect them or isn't as prevalent as most, but at the same time, it's there. Even though you might not experience it, you would see it all around you because this place has a lot of darkness in it. So you can see why staying in an environment or a dimension where you are love, you're surrounded by love, you're surrounded by beings that love you, it's unconditional. There's you don't experience negativity, you don't see negativity. There's every reason you would want to remain in a place like this. And it's not only that loving vibe, everything is just intensely beautiful. The landscaping is spectacular. There's seemingly an endless amount of information. It sounds like incredibly enticing. So in this place, she meets, she says, this being, and this being, she says, is, how does she put it? She's like she's a I'm just trying to find the word she used because I can't think of one to describe it. She says she's a conduit for the information that she's given, and this information is coming from many different souls, and they don't all talk to her at once because they feel that if that's what happened, it would be overwhelming for you, and so they decide to just manifest into the one form and communicate that way. Um, and what does she say? I think this spirit. Oh yeah. So they go on to have a bit of a tour. It's pretty spectacular, like I just said. And she asks, kind of like, okay, so why are we here? Like, why are we on this earth? And this is the answer this spirit or guide gives her. She says, we're here to love. We're here to practice love, to show love, to experience love. Hate is not the language of the spirit, nor is fear. Love is. The love of the spirit has no conditions or strings attached. It's simply love in all its forms. And I was thinking this might be sound kind of weird or hard to. It's kind of I'll try and explain what I was thinking the other day. Anyway, I was thinking about love, and I was thinking, what exactly is love? Okay, so when you love a puppy dog, are you loving what exactly are you loving there? Because what it is, it's just a bundle of cells that are put together in a certain way. And so, what are you loving this? the way these cells have been put together? Are you loving the way the dog acts? Are you loving the way the dog makes you feel? Like, what is that? What is love? Is love something that you just look at and are you in love with the way something looks? Are you in love with the way something makes you feel? Like, if the same goes for a person, it, are you looking for that security of having a partner and that's what we call love? Yeah, it's a strange thing, and the way humans view love is, I think, different to what is practiced in this other realm. Like, we tend to put a lot of conditions, or what is visually pleasing, or what personally makes us feel better or secure when we love as a human, whereas the other side seems to preach that love is unconditional and you just do it. It's what comes naturally. You just love because that is what you are, and it is unconditional and non-judgmental and just flows freely. Whereas from a human, when you've got this ego, when you've got this body that has needs, that love is different, and it can mean so many different things. And I'm not saying that's a good or a bad thing. That's just the way I view this thing we call love. It is a big part of this experience, but it's also very hard to define, and it seems pretty hard to grasp as well. It's very fleeting, and um, it has a lot of conditions attached. So unconditional love, it's a nice philosophy, um, but is it really possible in this physical realm? And are we here to be removed from that unconditional love that we do feel and experience and give in this spiritual realm, to truly understand how precious it is? Because here, love seems to have a totally different um, a different way of being than it does in this other realm. But yeah, that's just my opinion on that. So this guide says to Nancy, you should really share this experience with as many people as you can, and this is what Nancy promises she will do. And like I said at the start, she's not really sure how to get this story out, but she thinks writing to this website and starting this blog is a good start. And she kind of has this instinct or feeling, or I don't know, remembering her experience, and maybe they showed her a bit of her future. I can't remember, but she, even as she's writing this blog where she's just had the experience and she's kind of unsure which direction to take her spiritual path and journey, she kind of has this feeling that it's all going to get a lot bigger and more, become a bigger part of her life, and she realizes that it is not going to be easy. She says people will think she's crazy, and it's going to cost her a lot to come out and share what has happened to her, because she was this agnostic scientist before this experience happens. But she is now a different person. That was her then. This is her now, and she decides to share this experience with everyone because she feels that there's more people to be helped by taking this direction, and this is what the new Nancy looks like. Uh, she feels that this experience she had in heaven, or this is, she puts heaven in inverted commas, because I guess that's a term most of us, especially in the Western world, with those sort of Christian values or backgrounds they can relate to. She says that while she was there, it felt like a couple of human hours at the most, but in human terms, but in that other dimension, no, sorry. So when she comes back, she's amazed that she's only been unconscious for a couple of hours, but while she was in this other realm, it felt like weeks or months were passing. And that's just another pointer to the timelessness of this other dimension and how we experience time in this earth realm is not a reflection of the reality that time is, time is eternal. There's eternity in this other realm, and what we experience here is just another example of the opposite, if you like, nature of what the place where we come from. There's so many examples of the differences between here and there, and that's just one of them. Is how we experience time. And then she I'm just flicking through that. She starts to describe what heaven looked like, and yeah, I like the way she's written that. She's got a nice writing style, but I won't go through that again because I think we got that the first time around. Oh yeah, and this last paragraph has a couple of interesting points, or one anyway. She says the way different souls would experience the landscape that she was in would be different. So that's interesting, isn't it? That so if I died today and went to this same realm, I would see a totally different environment to what Nancy saw. And I wonder if that's just based on what you as an individual would prefer. Like I've said in previous episodes, I would, instead of a bright sunny filled spring like day, I'd like a more sort of cooler overcast day. Yeah, rolling hills sound pretty good. But yeah, I'm sure my soul and my spirit knows exactly what place to take me to if I'm so lucky to get to this heaven-like realm. And I'm sure it'll be amazing for each and every one of us to experience. But yeah, it's interesting that she says that everyone will see it differently, but at the same time, there will be that uniform understanding that love is emanating from it. Love made it. We are love, and it doesn't matter what visual aspects reflect that. It's still gonna give you that core understanding that love is the basis of everything, and that is what you and me are, and that is where we go back to. So thank you for listening again. I'd like to add that these experiences are fantastic for giving us some pointers, just like all religious and spiritual teachings are, in terms of an idea of where we've come from, where we're going, what we can do to improve our lives here. But at the end of the day, your own inner guidance and your intuition is going to be much better than any of these experiences at pointing you back to the source, back to your understanding of who you are, and that is going to be the best guidance for how you conduct your day-to-day life as a human and your spiritual journey. And listening to that, I think, is much better than listening to someone else's opinion on how it is. But it's just my opinion, and your opinion is much more important. So thank you for listening. I love you all. I will talk to you again next week. Have a good week.